All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Those of you who made it in person and those of you who are joining us online, pleasure as always. Before I get started, I got to go through my typical spiel that I always go through, right? So let's say my thanks first. As always, thanks to my boss, social studies supervisor, Pat Brady, for allowing me to do like research and dry run my material on the high school students. They seem to thoroughly enjoy it because I don't get to teach them the normal stuff. They enjoy a little bit of local history like you folks. I'd like to thank Cy Rao, right, director of the library. I'd like to thank Mayor Nicholas Sacco, right, for giving us the opportunity to really give the first shot at preserving some local history here in town. So without further ado, and speaking of Mayor Sacco, right, let's talk about this place, right? Town Hall, okay? It's the most, in my opinion, right? It is the most iconic building in town. It kind of stands out amongst the buildings in town. And we'll kind of see kind of why. We're going to see how it gets constructed, why it gets constructed, who constructs it, and what kind of people were around during that time, right? Some pretty familiar names there. So again, we have this great image here, right? The old with the new, right? I'll make my Kennedy Boulevard joke now. It's very interesting to see Kennedy Boulevard with no traffic, right? Every time I see Kennedy Boulevard pictures, I gotta make that joke. Now, before we talk about the current town hall, let's talk about the old town hall, okay? Original town hall was once located here. Streets that nobody even knows where they are anymore, but I'll tell you where they are. Fisher Ave is actually 51st Street today. And Turnpike, right? That would have been the Hackensack Turnpike. It's now Tunley Avenue. Okay, so original town hall was actually in a completely different place. And because of that location, there's going to be a bit of an issue when we talk about reconstructing it. Now, again, right here we have town hall more recent days and a very interesting piece of information here. We have this 1906 marker on the outside of the building, but the building actually doesn't open until 1907. All right, but we'll talk about that more down the road. Now, who do we have to thank for town hall? This dude, very handsome fellow right here. Mr. Edgar Hayden Loveridge. That's a name we don't really see too much anymore. He is a New Jersey senator out of West Hoboken, okay, which today we would just call downtown Union City. All right, anything south of 32nd Street used to be the town of Union Hill. Everything north of it was, everything south of 32nd Street was West Hoboken. 32nd Street and up is Union Hill, right? Most of us would know the high school, Union Hill High School, right? That's how we have it now. He gets elected in 1903 in a big upset of an election. He actually wins the election by 13,000 votes in West Hoboken. He serves on the Commission of Game and Fisheries. That's like his first assignment. But like, he's a guy from Hudson County, right? And even though it's 1903, like, what does this guy know about game and fisheries? You know what I mean? And being from Hudson County. So he actually writes a bill, the Loveridge Bill in 1904. And he basically says like, hey, my people need some stuff back home. And it calls for three things. He wants to repave Hudson Boulevard, which is about 9 years old at this point, right? 1895, Hudson Boulevard is completely created and connected from Bayonne all the way up to 91st Street. So he looks at it and says, listen, 9 years, it's gotten beat up. Let's do some work on there. He also addresses some issues the folks in Guttenberg are having. Mainly number one, they have no sewer system in Guttenberg. So he gets them some funding for sewage. And then North Bergen representatives said to him, hey, we really need a new town hall. Okay, so Loveridge says, sure, right? Let me see what I can do for you. So he gets us the money. Now we have this election in town in June of 1905, okay? We put it to the people of the town. Hey, do you want a new town hall or do you want to keep the old one down on Hackensack Plank Road? Okay. The estimation the town gave was it would cost $50,000 to build the new town hall in 1905. Today, it would have cost about $1.6 million to build the building that's down there. The vote was pretty overwhelming. 507 residents said, yeah, let's build this thing. And only 126 people were like, no, I'm good with the old one. When I looked at the actual wards where the votes came out of, It was all the people who live near town hall already voted to keep it there. And the rest of the town was like, no, we need it somewhere else. At the time, they didn't even have a location for this thing, right? So again, 1905 North Bergen, completely different from the North Bergen we know today. Most of it is vacant, right? There's small pockets of communities all over the place, but there's really no centralized area. Bergen Line Avenue isn't like a main throughway yet. Broadway's not that big of a deal. Even Kennedy Boulevard, or what's going to become Kennedy Boulevard, is not that populated, right? Most of the people are living along present-day Tunnelly Avenue. So it's interesting that, everybody wanted something new. Again, there was always rumors that it was going to be near Hudson Boulevard or on Hudson Boulevard with access from Hackensack Plank Road or Tunnelly Avenue today. Originally, most people thought it would be further south, closer to my 32nd Street in the Schutzen Park area. So moving it where they moved it was a little bit of an issue. The old town hall for years was deemed out of the way. Okay, the only way you were getting there was Hackensack Plank Road. Now, this gentleman comes on, Paul A. Marcy. He is going to be an architect, and he's awarded the building contract for town hall. So Marcy estimates, and he says, listen, I can get this thing done for $40,000. So $1.2 million today. The town of Marcy agreed that the corner of Hudson Boulevard and Main Street, 43rd Street, is the best place for this. The design called for a 3-story building constructed of light pressed brick with limestone trimmings. The ground floor, he said, will have a fire department, recorder's office, and police headquarters. Okay. The main floor will contain the council chambers, committee room, mayor's office, assessor's office, tax collector, and treasurer's office. And then finally, the third floor is to contain apartments for the janitors. Now, janitors have always lived there from 1906 to about 1962-ish. We know the first janitor that lived there was a gentleman by the name of James Earl, and the last one to live there was Cosmo Danchese. But I'll talk more about him at the end. So the building, again, when they planned this, the blueprints, it's fit with all the modern gadgets and latest technologies, meaning it's going to have indoor plumbing. It's going to have electricity, not just gas lights, but actual electricity, and ceiling fans, right? So this was like, ooh, we could work in the summer now here. The Wilmington Brothers, George and Charles of Union Hill, they work with Marcy. They are going to be the contractors and building suppliers. They're very comparable to today, to what we know like Ruther Material down on Tunnelly Avenue. And they got everything in motion for us. Now, who's really kind of running the show here, right? Who's running the town's end of the business here? Well, it's Mayor Charles Dietz. He is going to be mayor for 12 years, 1900 to 1912. He's a very beloved fixture in town. He is the first one to establish wards in the township, right? So the way we, all the districts and wards we have in town, that's the guy who comes up with it. He runs in 1904 and he says, I'm going to bring a new town hall to North Bergen. And that's how he wins the election, right? He's going to modernize North Bergen. When he wins, he's like, oh man, I did it. And he's like, I know nothing about construction though. So he passes the buck to this fellow right here. That is Commissioner James Nolan. Most residents might recognize the Nolan name, especially if you're a longtime resident. James Nolan Insurance, which was down by Six Corners in that neighborhood. It's still an insurance company today. They changed the name, but that was originally his business. Now, Nolan oversees everything. Every decision made by Marcy and the Wilmington Brothers needs to be approved by his aptly given nickname, Boss Nolan, right? They couldn't run anything without his approval, and he was known to be on the site of Town Hall before anybody else showed up. And of course, if he's there before everybody shows up, he was always the guy there, the last guy on the job site, overseeing everything going on. Nolan would eventually go on to serve as mayor from 1917 to 1921, which is, again, pretty tough time. That's the World War I era, and that's a whole other debate for another time. But my favorite fact about James Nolan is his two sisters were at one time the largest family in the world, and they were in the Guinness Book of World Records. They were all over 6'2", and all over 250 pounds. So at one time, they were the largest family in the world. I think that's pretty interesting. Now, again, here we have town hall outside. And I think this is part of the construction that's mostly overlooked, is that lion head that stands over the doorway in town hall. Most people are going in there to pay taxes, or, I got to go to the police department, pay a parking ticket. So you're really angry when you're going in there. You kind of overlook a lot of the detail in the building. It's a palazzo style. It's Italian, inspired building. And that lion head has been up there since 1906, kind of overlooking the town. Now, again, North Bergen lion, right? What does it mean? Lions in architecture serve as guardian beasts for the city. Again, it symbolizes strength, power, okay? It's to indicate the principal entrance of a building as well. And again, there's some building there. It's traditionally used in civic architecture in the early 20th century. Now, here's one of the first images ever of the original town hall. Okay, you can notice there's pretty much nothing there. Right now, again, today I know there's parking lots on the side, but if you notice Hillside Avenue behind it, there's just nothing there. There's no buildings, there's no nothing. Some of the iconic stuff out front, the two cannons, they're not there yet. That's a mystery. We'll get to that later. And again, it's kind of interesting to see like the little farmhouse off to the side, kind of details we don't really see anymore. But this was actually sent out to every resident in the town because, believe it or not, even though we voted to build this thing, most residents didn't know they actually did it. It was kind of just, they thought it was just like a thing. Yeah, oh yeah, we'll build it eventually. And then they were like, oh wow, they actually did it. So it's pretty interesting to see. Now that the town hall is finished, right, it opens officially on February 2nd, 1907. And the North Bergen officials, the commissioners and all the people, they come in and inspect the building. They arrive at 3 o'clock, and the Evening Journal, or today as we know it, the Jersey Journal, they are there. They report that it's the most handsome structure on the boulevard, which is pretty impressive, right? Because there are some major landmarks on the boulevard, right? There's a lot of hotels, there's a lot of resorts, right? Amusement parks. So it's a big statement to say something, especially because the Journal is an extremely Jersey City centric newspaper. They kind of always looked at us at the northern end of the county and they were like, you're not really part of us. They used to really throw a lot of shade at us all the time. So for them to say this was a big deal. When they accept the building, the town officials walk through. They're shown everything by the Wilmington Brothers. Marcy explains what's going on. The main entrance was reached by a very broad flight of stairs with wrought iron lamps on each side. Each room, like I said, was fitted with brass light fixtures. It had copper ceilings, marble floors on the first and second. And as for the design, it held true to Marcy's original blueprints. He did stick very close to it. Now, after the inspection, right, big hurrah, they head over to Robert Wennick's Hotel, which is in that original picture. And I'll show you in another one. It's the hotel right on the corner. Celebratory cigars are handed out just in time for Mayor Dietz to make a speech. Speeches were also given by pretty much anybody involved: the Wilmington Brothers, Paul Marcy, Fred Stenkoff, who was a town committeeman, James Nolan, William Daw, Robert Gall, right, who's the town engineer, Henry McPherson, who's the other engineer. And the new town hall was ready for occupancy by the end of March 1907. Now, again, 1907, imagine they had to bring everything up from the old town hall, and it was all done by horse and carriage, which is pretty impressive to think about that. Again, other notable people that were there, contractor Thomas Denny, he was a big builder in the area. Henry Andy's another committeeman. George D. Medina, the township recorder. He's actually given the job as township recorder, meaning he was the judge of the town at that time. George Bruce, who's a tax assessor, who has a very crazy life. He's like an artist, and he had like this huge studio in his home. A pretty wild dude. Pat Brady, Frederick Holt, Thomas Henry, William Renner, Robert Walker, Charles Bach. These names in 1906, 1907, these were the heavy hitters in the who's who of the North Bergen, North Hudson County world. This is the advertisement from the Jersey Journal, a little grainy, right? But it looks pretty good for 1907. This is, again, what people would have been seeing throughout the county. Now, why there, right? Mayor Dietz and the town commissioners hoped the location would actually unite the town. North Bergen is the second largest town in Hudson County, right? We often forget that, we overlook it, right? But it's a big deal for them to unite the town. There was also this lingering fear of boroughitis. that was taking hold in North Bergen. Again, boroitis is like, if you ever look at a map of Bergen County, there's like 7,000 towns in Bergen County. Why is there Richfield and Richfield Park, right? All of these towns in the late 1890s, early 1900s basically said, we're gonna be our own town. And they all kind of went their own ways. Mayor Dietz was really afraid of that happening in North Bergen. Unfortunately, though, Dietz's kind of effort gets challenged within only 2 years when Woodcliff tries to break away from the town. So Dietz tries to keep us together. Woodcliff actually stays, as we're all here. And then, we move forward. So there's what we would have saw. That original photo, right, is interesting to see because now you can really see there really is nothing in here, right? There are no homes. There's nothing. Again, something we looked at last month, the greenhouses that are all over the place, right? Hard to believe that, you're going to build something, that's going to service the entire town and there's barely anybody around, right? So it's pretty interesting. Now, the first order of business, okay, March 28th, 1907, the brilliant building on the boulevard, as it was called, right? They have the first night town meeting, right? New building, let's have a meeting, okay? The building was ablaze with lights, gas and electric, right? Made all the brighter because, well, there's nothing around the building, right? So the thing really popped on Kennedy Boulevard. The night had 3 meetings, okay? The first, a private committee meeting, right? The second was a meeting to receive bids for a hose carriage for the fire department. And bids range from about $685 to $780 for a fire wagon. And then the third meeting was this meeting about creating the North Bergen Police Department. So there was no police department prior to 1907. They were known as the North Bergen Rounders, and they just made their rounds, right? So they're the Rounders, and they needed a new police department. Here they are, right? The first official picture of the North Bergen Police in 1908, right? And you got James Nolan, who becomes police commissioner, sitting right there. And you have future chief of police right here, Leonard Marcy. So they take the picture right outside of town hall. And again, you can see the wrought iron lamps, right? They're covering the stairs, but really great preserved picture of those gentlemen. Now, back to that first order of business and all that stuff, right? The third meeting was, again, of most interest to those in attendance. They actually announced the salaries of the police officers, okay? So again, they said a captain is going to receive $1,000 a year, okay? A sergeant, 900, the roundsman, 840, patrolman, 720. Now, originally there are 2 roundsmen and 21 patrolmen, okay? They have established 15 chancemen who were basically, if something was going wrong, they called those guys up, almost like a reserve unit. The new police department was tasked with fixing boundary posts throughout town. And I had to look up what that meant. I was like, well, they didn't know the boundaries of the town. What they actually had to fix were people's private property posts, because people were just going around and taking vacant lots and saying it was their property. So the town sent out the police. They were like, no, this is your property now. This is your property now, and so on. They were also tasked with developing and providing day and night patrols as well. So prior to this, the police only operated during the daytime. At nighttime, everybody went home. And then again, they were like, no, we need more people out there. Again, during the 1907 meeting, and there's Leonard Marcy right there, he's named the first captain in the North Bergen Police Department. And then only a handful of years later, he becomes chief of police. And Leonard Marcy becomes this kind of larger than life figure in town, gets involved with every aspect. And I think the best part about Leonard Marcy is before he becomes a police officer, he owns a casino that would have stood on 81st Street and Bergen Line Avenue. So it's pretty interesting. There was one last issue given to the committee that night. The Board of Education actually went to the meeting and they said, can we have an office in the new building? And they said, we'll talk about that next meeting. The Board of Education never got that office. They were told no, no new building for you. Now, here you have Town Hall circa 1910. Again, this is going to be Wenecke's Hotel right here on the corner. And that was kind of like the hub of activity. Anything that happened at Town Hall would always spill over there. Most town employees actually cashed their checks there at the time, which is really interesting to see. Here's Town Hall a little later. This is after the next renovation and final renovation, actually. So this is in 1927. So What happens is in 1925, they decide to renovate and extend Town Hall, which is the building. If you've been in Town Hall before, that's the same building they're doing right now. Okay. With the growth of the town and town services, an addition to Town Hall is proposed by the summer of 1925. By the time the building and its fixtures are outdated. So the town wished not only to add an addition, but reconstruct the inside of the building as well. So 6 bids are received for construction, right, from $80,000 to $86,000, which again, seems like not a lot, but in today's money, 1.2 to let's round up $4 million. And that was just for construction, right? Then there's bids for heating and for electric and everything. And again, the prices seem kind of laughable today, because if you need something fixed in your house, and like a plumber is going to quote you $9,200 for something today, and they were going to plumb an entire building, right, for that price. So it's pretty impressive. Now, who's paying for this, right? Great, you want to renovate a building, let's do it. And where are we getting this? So the township committee actually comes up with probably the most insane idea I've ever seen anywhere in teaching history all my life. They're like, hey, you know what we should do? We should raise the tolls on the Camden, Philadelphia bridge. And that's how we'll pay for this. So they actually send that to State Senator Alexander Simpson and the New Jersey Interstate Bridge and Tunnel Commission. They're like, oh, we need to fix some building. Just jack those tolls up a little bit. And Senator Simpson actually goes to the train and reads it on the floor of the Senate. And people just start walking out of the room. They're like, this is not happening. And they just leave. In November of 25, it's announced that the improvements are going to be postponed for a little bit. What happens then is the town creates a couple of bonds. Special assets bond for $162,000 is created, and then they have some improvement bonds totaling $249,000. And both the town approves all these things, and they get the funding all shored up and everything. So the blueprints, right? We're going to renovate this thing, we're going to extend this thing, but who's going to do it? So they get another architect, right, out of West Hoboken. They must grow them down there. I don't know what's going on down there, but Frederick Hensel is chosen to design and expand the building. He says he could do it for $90,000, right? So Hensel is a very well-known architect in Northern Hudson County, builds a ton of stuff, including 5 schools in North Bergen. So he's the architect behind Lincoln School, Franklin School, McKinley School, Robert Fulton, and Horace Mann School. So he is like a very well-respected guy. If anybody here or anybody online actually went to those schools, now you know who to thank for the wonderful flow in those buildings, all right? Now, the renovations begin in May of 26. During the kind of construction, they had to blast out some bluestone that was under the building. So they set off some dynamite. And this is kind of like the big, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. The blast is so strong, it actually rocks the Board of Freeholders meeting that's taking place in Town Hall. And several of the councilmen are actually like lifted out of their chairs, right? Desks flip over and stuff like that. And then they decide that maybe when they're blasting, nobody should be in the building. Material and labor, right, for the renovation are provided by Jacob Schmidt and Sons of Sea Caucus. Again, they were big in the county. They provided material and labor for Robert Fulton, the Jefferson School Annex, which would be where present-day Kennedy School is, and McKinley School. Now, the renovations are complete in the summer of 1927. There's a grand reopening, and then the speech by Mayor Charles Morris is given on the steps of the building. And the Jersey Journal noted that as soon as the speech was over, he turned around and went back to work. No big parade, no nothing. As like the first one, there was, a party in a hotel. Charles Morris turned around and went right back to work. So pretty interesting to see how times changed. Here we have another picture of them outside, the police outside in 1925. Really not much change on the outside of the building. The uniforms changed a little bit, right? Now, the rest is history, right? That building has stood on the corner for almost 96 years unchanged, right? 16 different mayors will serve in Town Hall, right? First being Charles Dietz, to our current mayor, Nicholas Sacco. Now, there's a couple of mysteries with Town Hall, as with any old building, right? The cannons, no one knows where they came from or when they showed up, right? There's no record anywhere of them being added or where they come from or who might have donated them. The best guess anybody has is that they show up sometime between 1945 and 1950. And most of that is based on photos we've seen of Town Hall. They just kind of appear within that time frame. Lastly, the monument, the World War I monument that's outside, is actually missing somebody's name. William Beatty was killed in action during World War I. He's the only North Bergen resident not listed. And the legend is that his family did not want his name on there because they hoped he was going to come home. So again, Mr. Beatty is not on there. And then there's one last part, right? It goes back to that gentleman, Cosmo Danchese. If my dad is watching, he's gonna get really mad at me right now because I chose a very interesting picture. Cosmo Danchese is my great-grandfather. So my great-grandfather lived on top of Town Hall. When my grandparents got married, they had nowhere to live. They lived on top of Town Hall. My uncle and my father were both born in Town Hall. That is my dad, that handsome son of a gun, at 6 months old in the apartment on top of Town Hall. Art is here. I think Art, that wallpaper is still upstairs. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. My baby picture of my dad. All right. Thanks for coming. I'll take any questions you guys have now as I just wreck everything here. So yeah, any questions? I got anything going here? Did I just embarrass myself on the North Bergen internet? Tough crowd today.
A question about the cannons.
Sure.
Are there any marks on them or anything? Do they have any idea where they came from or what era?
There is no marks on them. There's no indications. There's no serial numbers. There's nothing on them.
No manufacturers marks.
Nothing. So there is someone in town who has a theory where they came from, and there's an old newspaper article from like 1912 about somebody actually finding cannons on their property.
Okay.
They think it's those cannons, but then the news just goes dead, the story. And there's no saying like, oh, where they go, who gets them, anything like that. So maybe, right? They dug them out of the basement of somebody's house and put them up for decoration. Who knows?
Civil War era or something?
You know, they don't, to me, I don't think they're Civil War era, but they're not Revolutionary War era either.
They're not that far back.
No, they're not that far back. We do know that there were a lot of small, I don't want to call them like militia groups, but there were small like military style groups for veterans in the area. They might have been kind of parade cannons.
Ceremonial.
Right, ceremonial. I don't think they were ever fired. They look too small, and they don't look like you're firing anything that's gonna really do any damage anywhere. So I would assume, if I had to bet, that they're probably just some type of ceremonial cannon.
There's a couple of questions in the chat box.
Sure.
First question, where did you find all the great photos?
So I just scour the internet for hours on end. My wife really loves that. So I'm like, not now, honey. But no, a lot of them are in kind of the collection we have here. Some of them are just kind of stolen off Facebook. No shame in my game. All right, but there are some records and pictures we found in different catalogs and different genealogy books. You know, the James Nolan picture, the Leonard Marcy picture. Something they used to do, and they don't really do it too much anymore. They would do like a genealogy of like really popular people in the area. And they usually about every 5 to 10 years, they would do something on, you know, politicians, business owners, you know, builders, teachers. And like, they would just put together like a little history of them. And then they would sell it. And like, you know, you just like, look what I picked up. The who's who of Hudson County, 1917. You know, so that's where we got some of those pictures out of.
Next question. I've heard that there were jail cells or holding cells in town hall. Do you know whether or not this is accurate?
Oh yeah, the police station was there. So they definitely had holding cells there. Holding cells are going to be moved in about 1928, 1929 when they build the extension, the other extension on Town Hall, where the police station is now. That's when they finally moved the jail cells out, but not jail cells like we're thinking, like, you know, the guy with the, you know, the doors and you got to pull the lever or anything like that. Was it one simple jail cell, kept them in there. Believe it or not, most of the reports of crime that I've come across early North Bergen seems to be handled like right on the spot. Like somebody did something wrong, they dealt with it right there, and like that was it. You got your fine, or you got sent to the county jail most of the time. The only really thing we see that the jail cell in the town hall gets used for is holding criminals that have to go back to New York, because they had to wait for somebody to ferry across the river, pick them up, and then ferry back. So that was more like of a long-term, short-term holding thing, where most of them would have been sent to Sea Caucus to be put in the prison out there.
Question. Do you know when the North Bergen Police Building headquarters was built?
So we're looking late 20s. It's right after the extension on Town Hall. The 28 is when they start. 29 is probably when they're completely done. But right about then, everything kind of, you know, it's interesting when you look at a lot of the civic projects that go on in town, that they got very lucky that they got everything done before 1929. Because once 1929 comes, the Great Depression starts and just everything stops, right? So most of that stuff is completely finished right beforehand. And if you go to the police station, again, I know most people are going there to pay tickets and stuff, but if you look at the outside of the building, there's really great like late 20s Art Deco designs on the building, especially along the roof line. It's kind of work you don't see much anymore. It's something you could kind of see more in Manhattan. So you could see that the style kind of spilled over, but that's when that's going to happen.
Question. Who enforced the laws before the police?
Oh, who enforced? That's a good question. So the constables did. You basically had like guys in charge of like their neighborhood, and they handled like crime. They were given authority through the county to basically just enforce the law. And again, enforce the law was very questionable before 1907. It was whatever thing bothered them would have been a crime, or whatever their neighbors were bothered by was a crime. So that's also why there was this call for like an official police department, because it's like, hey, this guy didn't do anything when I called, and like I had to call this guy and he came and took care of it. So the constables took care of everything beforehand. It's not until 1907 we see the North Bergen police come around. It's not until about 1912 that we even see the Boulevard police come up this way. And then the county police don't come until another couple of years after them. We see really a huge booster in law enforcement agencies here after World War I, because now you have a ton of veterans coming home that need jobs. So that's when you see the county police, the Boulevard police, you see the railroad police come along, right? North Bergen police, Guttenberg, everybody starts getting police departments after the war, because now you have all these guys that have the training to know what they're doing, and you know, law enforcement. I don't know, that's where we're going.
Another question about the police department. Can I ask where the building is?
So right behind Town Hall. What would that be? You know,
It's the same address.
it's the same address. So what, 4233
4233.
Kennedy Boulevard.
The final question that I currently have in the chat box. You mentioned last time about asking about the story about the drawer in the mayor's desk.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't get to see the desk. I still want to see. Art is here, and Art was kind enough to accompany me last month into a dirty basement that nobody's been in I think since 1989, right? That was the last. 1989 was the newest document we found down there. The desk was not down there, so perhaps this is just lore. Who knows if this is town lore, or who knows if the desk is somewhere else. I'll have to start scouring like every building now for this desk and see if it exists. Or it could unfortunately be one of those things that we've just lost completely to history. I'd like to think it's in somebody's basement.
Do you mind sharing the story again? The people in Zoom.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the rumor is when Julius Wright becomes mayor in 1930, he he buys a desk, which number one, people in town are like, why are you buying a desk? It's the Depression is here. Like you're buying this beautiful, like hand carved wooden desk. And the rumor is that the drawer went all the way through. So when you visited Mr. Wright's office, he'd push the drawer out in front of you, and then you would leave a donation, so to say, and then he would pull the desk drawer back in. I just want to know if it's true or not. Like, I just want to know if that exists. But we'll see. I have not found it yet. If I do, you'll know. I will go live on Instagram, on Facebook, and be like, I found it.
That was all the questions I had in the chat box.
Sure.
Question for you.
Sure.
On the ground floor, there's a bank style vault. Is that part of the original building?
Bank style vault is part of the building because that's where they would have dropped your taxes off, right? Would have paid your tax bill right there, almost just like a night deposit box. Couldn't get there during the day, just drop it in that day, right? Drop it in at night, drop it in the night before, but that's what that's for. And it was also used for official business. So if you had anything else to deliver to town hall, couldn't get there during hours of operation, you left it in their mailbox.
I'm not talking about the mailbox.
No, the vault, sorry. Yeah.
1907, what was the population?
So the 1907 population in North Bergen is pretty small. We're probably only about 9,000 to 10,000 people in town. Which really, like, I make a joke all the time with the kids in the high school when they're like, there's nobody here. I'm like, yeah, there's more people in this building right now than there were in this town like in 1900. And then they're like, oh, they laugh. I think they just laugh at my jokes because they know I grade them. But yeah, there's not a lot of people. It's not really until 1920, there's this just massive explosion. Again, 10,000 people is not a lot of, like, it's, not a small amount of people, right? Especially for what the town was capable of doing. So for them, 10,000 people that was a lot of people for them, to deal with it, especially because they're so spread out, right? But once like 1920 comes along, right, the war's over. So you have massive waves of people coming from Europe, and the population of this town explodes to like 60,000 people, like within 10 years. And then that's why we need the extension. That's why we need the renovation to the new building. And then the population just probably has never gone down since 1920. Just constantly kept going up. So yeah, that's, pretty wild to think there was nobody here. You're gonna see 10,000 people on your way home today. But yeah.
Another question in the chat box.
Sure.
Didn't Mayor Hage have that same desk?
Yeah, you know what? Mayor Hage probably had that same desk. He's probably one of the most interesting people in New Jersey history, if not American history. So for those of you who are not sure who Mayor Hage is, he was the mayor of Jersey City. Now, if you had that desk, I can't speak to that desk, but I can tell you one thing that Mayor Hage did have that nobody else had. So again, the Jersey City of the 1940s, very different from the Jersey City of today. There's no luxury buildings in Jersey City on the waterfront. It is manufacturing, it is shipping, right? There's stuff going in and out. Mayor Hage wins election in 1938, same year FDR wins election in 1938. World War II starts, New Jersey and Jersey City, major manufacturing hub. Mayor Hage is given, and by given, he demanded a direct phone line to the White House, where when he picked it up, it rang, and if FDR didn't pick up the phone, he'd hang up. And what that meant for FDR was the ports of Jersey City would be shut down until Frank Hage got what he wanted. So Frank Hage is a very interesting dude. There is actually a class in Harvard University taught about Frank Hage and what he did basically to the idea of politics. I liken him to, if you've ever seen Gangs of New York, he is very much Tammany, William Tammany in New York. Right. Ball Street. I go and I'm like, hey, and he's like, go home and shave and come back and do it again. Very interesting dude. But very, he grows up extremely poor. Parents are Irish immigrants. And he grows up in the Horseshoe section of Jersey City, which, now if Frank Hage saw that, he'd probably be like, what happened here? But grows up extremely poor and really scrapes his way to like political power. He and Mayor Morris, are very close friends. They actually worked together to create the 6th Street Bridge on Grand Avenue. Prior to that, bridge being completed in the 40s, which I think we have a picture of it somewhere in here. prior to that bridge, if that bridge wasn't there, you had to drive all the way up to Kennedy Boulevard to get around 6th Street to get into North Bergen, or to vice versa to get into Jersey City. But Hage, very interesting dude. Very, very interesting dude.
Call for questions.
That's all? All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why did janitors stop living in the town hall?
Okay, so why did janitors stop living in town hall? Mainly because the upstairs started to just be used as storage. As the town grew, right, there's tons of material, they need storage, and they also don't need a night janitor. You don't need somebody there to be all night. So they closed it up and basically said, this is storage now. And I think it's been storage pretty much ever since. So I like to tell Art all the time that I want to move back there. I feel like it's my birthright. I deserve a room there. See me walk around with coffee in the morning. But no, yeah, it's basically they just ran out of room. They needed more storage. And again, the property doesn't really lend itself too much to expansion anymore. You got so many people that work there, and you need parking and stuff like that. So just gets simply used as storage. All right. Well, I guess let's wrap it up there. We had a big project going on here Thursday. I'm going to aggravate everybody in the library because we are cleaning artifacts we pulled out of town hall. I was covered in filth when I pulled them out. I think the clothes I wore still have dirt on them, but we found some interesting documents in the basement of town hall, an 1866 tax book log, then some records from the 1870s. Very beautifully hand-drawn maps of North Bergen, which we are going to scan, or not necessarily scan, but we are going to digitize and make them available on our website. There's also great footage of 1954 North Bergen, which is like really like taking a trip. Think about, I know 1860 is a trip back in time, but 1954, you look at the town and boy, it doesn't look the same. A lot of open space, but a lot of recognizable places are still there. So we're hoping to do something with that, and maybe we'll have something where we lay them all out. You come by, take a look. We're also getting ready for our kind of spring, summer walking events, right? Get everybody outside, fresh air, sunshine, right? I get a little more animated when I'm outside. I think it's the fresh air. But we're getting geared up for that. So we'll keep you posted, right? I hope to see everybody here next month for the next event. I'm still working on it to make it entertaining. All right. And thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Oh,
We got one more last question.
Lori snuck it in there.
Snuck it in. Was Guttenberg ever part of North Bergen?
Okay, Guttenberg, never part of North Bergen and never will be as long as I'm alive. No, Guttenberg again is its own township, always has been. It was the first drawn out city, right? Again, Guttenberg, streets are perfectly gridded, right? Made by the Woodcliff Land Improvement Company, and then basically taken over by German immigrants. And again, the name of Guttenberg, we don't know really where it comes from. Two theories. One, all the immigrants that came from Germany were from the city of Mainz, which is where Johann Gutenberg is from, the inventor of the printing press. That's one theory. The other theory is Gutenberg is literally a German word. Guten meaning good, Berg meaning mountain. They saw it and they went, it's a good mountain. It's a Guttenberg. And then somebody was like, that's a great idea for a name. But no, never part of North Bergen. And I don't think it will be. Last time it would have been like 1880. But so West New York was also part of North Bergen until 1898. Sea Caucus was part of North Bergen until 1900. So really just, that would have been, I guess, the last time it was part of North Bergen.
I have one last question in the chat box.
Sure.
What was the range of taxes in 1867?
Okay, so we actually found the one thing that's in there. Some guy owned like 46 acres of property and paid like $12 in taxes. So we're actually going to digitize those records so people could take a look at them and see and then go, what the hell? My taxes keep going up. This guy's paying $30. So yeah, no, the taxes, again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to take it with the time and the perspective of inflation rate. I know that's a word nobody wants to hear right now, but the inflation rate and the value of a dollar. Also, you have to take a look too. It's 1866. So the economy is actually is just coming back from the Civil War, right? So we're actually in the 1860s, we're on the verge of a depression. in this country, right? We always talk about the one in 29, but there's actually several economic depressions this country goes through before 29. So we may look and be like, oh, wow, $12, but like that might have been a backbreaking $12 for somebody during that time. So it's going to be interesting to really see, you know, what these folks were paying. And then hopefully we can even plot some of the homes because we do have a map from that era with property names on it. So hopefully we can figure out who they were, where they are. And then, you know, I'll go ring people's doorbell and be like, you see this? Your tax rate, 1966. But all right, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate
Thank you.
coming out. Hope to see you. That's all I got.